Coming up on Theater Talk.
You're the showboater, if you will, in the courtroom, Patrick. Fabulously, for lack of a better word, slimy performance as an old, ambitious...
I take that as an enormous compliment.
Absolutely. I can see how much...
Kettle.
Theater Talk is made possible in part by the CUNY TV Foundation.
Our job is to keep intact the system that served this country and this state so well, to make law and order the rule of the land, to reject the law of the jungle.
What does he mean, jungle? Call it.
From New York City, this is Theater Talk. I'm Susan Haskins.
And I'm Michael Riedel of the New York Post. Now, Susan, you know I love a courtroom drama. Caine Mutiny, A Few Good Men, and we have a real cracker of a courtroom drama on Broadway now at the Golden Theater. A Time to Kill, which has been adapted from John Grisham's famous novel. Absolutely first-rate cast, and a very good adapter, too, I might add, who have joined us tonight on Theater Talk. We are with Sebastian Arcelus, who plays Jake, the Matthew McConaughey part.
As it were.
Yeah, you have the same hair. I'm sure that's been pointed out.
I heard that one before.
Oh, really? Is that deliberate on your part? Were you channeling his hair? Or
No, this has been since birth.
Fantastic actor, John Douglas Thompson as Carl Lee, the man in the docket. Time to Kill. Welcome to Theater Talk. Our great old friend Rupert Holmes, who has adapted John Grisham's book to the stage and wrote one of my favorite musicals of all time, The Mystery of Edwin Drood. Welcome, Rupert. Thank you. And another old friend of ours, my old sparring partner from his Spider-Man days, Mr. Patrick Page, who is playing a villain yet again this time, Patrick.
Well, it depends on how you look at it.
Villainy is in the eye of the villain. All right, gentlemen, welcome all to Theater Talk.
Thank you.
All right, Rupert, did someone come to you to adapt the book, or is this a book that you read and you thought this could be a stage play?
No, our producer, Darryl Roth, our lead producer, along with Eva Price, came to me and said, would you have a take on a John Grisham novel on stage? Because I've been having some discussions about that very topic. And I wondered how that could be done, or if that could be done. And I gravitated towards his very first novel, and I'm very glad I did. It's
Oh, so they gave you a choice. You could have done any one that you wanted to?
No, I can't tell you that, but that was the one I went for immediately.
Right.
And what struck me as I read it was that very much like, for me, the Caine Mutiny and the Caine Mutiny Court-Martial, which is the courtroom drama that was plucked from a
section of the book, yeah.
I thought, you know, this could actually be an ultimate courtroom drama, in that if I were to shift things just a little bit within the story, you would have a man on trial for murder where the murder that he committed was in the same courtroom in which he's being tried.
Right.
Where the prosecutor, who was originally going to go after the victims of his crime, is now against him. Where the person who tried to console him before the crime is now representing him. I said, I don't think anyone's ever done that, not even Agatha Christie in a courtroom drama. And the other thing I like so much about courtroom dramas is you take all these sprawling, volatile emotions and then force them into the absolute rigid, polite setting of a courtroom, which is probably our most civilized place on earth.
Right.
It's the only place where if someone says, you'll stop talking now, you have to stop talking or you'll be taken and put in prison. And yet that's still happening within the framework of a democracy. Yeah. So I thought, you know, really there is potentially a tremendously theatrical piece here lying within these pages of this novel. And so I immediately said, I think this can be done. It will have a big cast.
Yeah.
But I think it can be done.
Very good point, and I want to get all of you, the actors in the play, your take on this, because I think when you do a courtroom drama, it just must be fun to be such a play that is, as Rupert says, inherently theatrical. You know, I mean, when you go on every night and you're going to take, I'm not going to use the word journey because we hate that word. You're going to take the audience into your world, and you know there are going to be the twists and the turns and the sort of rip-roaring, good old-fashioned, well-made, played kind of melodrama stuff. Do you enjoy playing these kind of parts?
Extremely so, and especially with these actors here before us. As Rupert was saying, there is something amazing about you are sort of inherently busting at the seams within the courtroom setting. And so it's how you weave around those conventions and those formalities, how you break them down and how you spar with one another that really make for an exciting night of theater. And at the heart of it, you have this amazing story that John Grisham, I mean, he's
based on a real story, I believe, right? I mean, it wasn't something
inspired by
a real
case that he witnessed himself, that he happened to be in court and saw a case that led him to do that wonderful thing that great storytellers do, which is to think, what if? What if I took it a notch further? What would be the outcome of that? And that was really what inspired him to write this very first novel, something.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, he was sitting in the courtroom listening to an arraignment of, someone who had committed this similar crime, and he thought to himself, if I only had a gun. Yeah. Something to that effect.
And in your character, we're not giving away the secrets here, but you kill these guys who raped your daughter. It's interesting because the courtroom setting also is a show business setting.
Yes.
You guys are performing. You're the only one who's not performing, though. I mean, your character he's not performing.
Well, no, and that's what, as you were talking about seeing the courtroom being inherently dramatical or a dramatic environment, for me, it's not. Obviously, for Carl Lee, because of what's going on for his character. But for me, it's kind of the exploration of a man who gets pulled into the court system,
right?
Loses the control. Because one of the things we talked about in rehearsal is, when you're up in a situation like that, you lose control. The lawyer kind of represents you and who you are. So for me, it was more of a journey of a man who was living a fairly decent life, good family, happy wife, happy kids, and then this horrible thing happens with his daughter, and it kind of rips him into a place of vengeance, and then he's pulled into the court system, and now he's fighting for his life through that.
Now, speaking of showbiz, you're the showboater, if you will, in the courtroom, Patrick. Fabulously, for lack of a better word, slimy performance as an old, ambitious...
I take that as an enormous compliment.
Absolutely. I can see how much...
Kettle.
But I can see you're just having fun. I mean, this prosecutor you play, does he believe in anything but the greater glory of himself?
I think the thing about a man like Rufus Buckley is that he convinces himself thoroughly that he believes it. It also happens to be a way to achieve his political ends. But it's not a difficult thing for me playing the role to convince myself that a man who's gunned down two people who are handcuffed and on their way back to jail is the right thing to do, to prosecute that man, that the system breaks down altogether if we let men like Carl Lee walk free. And it's, of course, complicated by the fact that it happens in a small Mississippi town in the mid-'80s. Race is a huge issue. The people prosecuting him are white, and he's a black man in a primarily white community, and that's where it gets complicated. And the other great thing about a courtroom, of course, is that as an actor, I guess one of the things we're always trying to do is pretend less. We want things to be more real. Right. We want to get less and less pretending. And in a situation like this, because of the way it's been directed, where the audience becomes the jury, there's no jury on stage, but the stage rotates, and now the audience is the jury.
You guys address the audience throughout the play because we are the jury. I thought it was very cleverly staged.
And therefore, there's very little pretending one has to do. You can actually try to convince the audience. You can actually go head-to-head with Sebastian. You can actually try to put Carl Lee away. Every night before the show, I tell John, I say, you're going down tonight.
You're getting convicted tonight.
He walks by my dressing room, I say, dead man walking.
It struck me, though, Rupert, although this is about a man who was avenging a terrible crime when he murdered, that it was a very subversive story, because if you're to take your character's part, you are saying that vengeance is justifiable.
You could argue that this is making a case for vigilantism.
Or is there ever a time to kill, and what the legal implications of doing that would be?
You were going to say, Rupert?
No, I was just going to say, anytime that Patrick is making the case against Carl Lee, I'm sitting there and thinking,
exactly.
I can't really.
Wait, that is
it's not that easy.
And it's what makes Jake, what makes Sebastian's challenge really theoretically insurmountable, which is that what is this defense that you can possibly have?
I saw the show last night, and I was thinking, we're not going to give the twists and turns and how you get the better of each other here and there. But after everything has been gone your way, let's say, when you give the final summation, if I'm in the jury, I would have voted to convict you. you killed 2 people who never had a trial, who weren't convicted of anything.
Right. That's how it seems. It seems like it's a win-win, or in the situation that it's in the bucket, right?
Yep.
But I think there's a human element to it.
Yeah.
There's a human question, and that's what puts before the jury. If this was your daughter, your goddaughter, or a loved one, what would you do? Obviously, the jury's all white.
Right.
So once we switch it, and he makes the case that it's not just about race, what if this was your daughter? Then that's the human element that shows up. And emotion outweighs facts at that point.
Yeah. We got to wrap it up soon, but Patrick, I can't let you escape without getting your take on Spider-Man, which you were at the center of it all. Still going on despite my best efforts to bring it down.
We have defeated you, Michael. We have defeated you.
Must make you feel so good to completely neuter the most powerful columnist on Broadway.
Yes, and who is that?
Walked in.
Goblin Horn.
He walked right in that one.
Glenn Berger's got a book he wrote.
I know. Apparently, you've read it. I have not read it.
You have not read it. Will you read it?
I will certainly read it. If you were to hand it to me now, I would end this interview and start reading it.
Right.
No, I'm dying to read it.
Well, the thing I'm curious about, though, and I've written about this in the column, and Glenn is coming on the show in a couple of weeks, so we'll certainly be talking about this. He and Julie were collaborators, and she really plucked him from obscurity and poverty, as he admits in the book. And he betrayed her. He turned against her. How did you feel as being in the show at that time when that was going on? How did you feel about his act of a Judas?
Well, we were really, as a cast, and this is to the credit of all of the people involved, Julie, Glenn, Phil McKinley, who took over, and the producers. We were really insulated from that. And Julie bore everything with tremendous dignity, because I am a friend of Julie's, and she could have said everything to me, and really protected us as a cast from what was going on behind the scenes. So at the time, there was not really an issue of taking sides, because we didn't know really what the heck was going on. We knew the show was taking.
You were just worried for your lives every time you went out on the stage.
I was never worried. Michael, I've never felt safer in a theater, and that's the truth.
But in the end, though, do you think Julie was treated unfairly? Putting you on the spot here, like the courtroom.
Yeah, you're putting me on the spot. I won't say whether Julie was treated unfairly or not. I will say that I think all of the people involved really, really tried to do their jobs. Julie was doing the job of an artist and stuck by it in a way that few artists are able to do. Almost all of us who call ourselves artists, when someone really comes up and says, well, it's this or you go, we'll say, well, we'll do it your way then. Julie won't do that, and for that I admire her tremendously. On the other hand, the producers had a $75 million show, and they had something that they felt was necessary. Whether or not I agree with that, or Julie agrees with that, or anybody agrees with that, is immaterial to the fact that they were doing their jobs as producers. So it was, in the same way that if one comes from a divorced family, one says, do you love your mom, do you love your dad? Yeah, I love them both. And so it's not for me to say, but I'm happy that they worked it all out, that they settled all of that they didn't have.
I'm not. I wanted to go to court. It would have been a
a
fabulous show in town. You could have adapted it for the stage.
I didn't want to go to court. I knew I was on some of the
You would have been
witness lists.
testifying.
And then I wouldn't have been able to run around it the way I have here.
Very well said, Patrick. There's a reason why you're playing that tricky prosecutor in A Time to Kill. All right, the play is A Time to Kill at the Golden Theater, adapted by our good friend Rupert Holmes from John Grisham's book. And we should say Mr. Grisham has a new book out called Sycamore Row that none of you have read yet, but I understand you all have autographed copies.
We do.
All right, Sebastian Arcelus, who plays Jake, the cute, nice lawyer that all the girls like.
He's got a little edge to him, too.
John Douglas Thompson, a terrific performance as a man with great dignity, Carl Lee in the play. Rupert, it's always a pleasure to see you. And Patrick Page, I'll have you back and really press you with that. You're going down, my friend.
Badgering the witness. Badgering.
Overruled.
You're talking to Thank you very much and good night.
On that terrible and bloody day, Mr. Hayden, didn't you play God?
Maybe I did.
I think the jury'd like to hear that answer.
Maybe I did.
And it felt good, didn't it?
You know it did.
And you do it again, no regret.
Oh, you're damn right. I just wish I could have killed him more.
And we have now one of our favorite guests of all time. The man owns London. He owns England. He has the most influential column in the Daily Mail in London. Our good friend Baz Bamigboye. Welcome back to
Nice to see you.
How many readers do you have at the Daily Mail? Something like 4 or 5 million?
Oh, many. Yeah, about that. They don't all read me, sadly, but we have a lot of readers.
Everybody reads Baz Bamigboye on Friday.
And of course, we're big online as well.
Well, welcome to New York. You're doing a tour of all the shows opening this
Yes.
fall. And of course, the biggest one, with its $14 or $15 million advance, is Harold Pinter's Betrayal with Daniel Craig and Rachel Weisz, directed by Mike Nichols.
And you didn't mention Rafe Spall.
Rafe
He's the big surprise.
He's quite wonderful.
All right, so you've seen it. Give us your assessment of it.
Well, I like the play, but it's not always done well, especially in this country. I mean, I did see a production a few years ago with Juliette Binoche. Which
And Liev Schreiber.
I try hard to forget. He was good in it, Liev Schreiber.
was good, yeah.
Anyway, this is great. Across, it's lavish,
Yeah.
but I tell you, it's impeccably done, in my view. I mean, there are a few Americans sitting there a bit po-faced, but I like it. It's kind of dangerous, a little bit wicked, and passionate. It's the most passionate betrayal I've seen in years.
Did you see the original Betrayal, the original
I'm
production?
not that old, but I did. But as it happens, I did.
Who was in the original?
Oh my God, Michael Gambon,
Oh, fabulous actor.
Daniel Massey, and Penelope Wilton.
Now you, I believe, you knew Harold Pinter.
Yeah, he used to come out for tea every day. No. But I kind of would see him on the rounds, and I kind of, for several years he hated my guts.
Why? Because he was a prickly character.
Oh, he was prickly. Well, because I kind of got involved in covering his dalliances. When he was having an affair with Antonia Fraser, his widow.
Yeah.
I covered that and the breakup of her marriage to her husband. And so he thought I was kind of lower than a snake's navel, frankly. And he may well have been right. So, I mean, you call him up or go around to his house and it would be, I'm putting the phone down now.
Click.
Alan Bennett does that as well.
Oh, really?
I'm putting the phone down now, Mr. Bamigboye, ever so politely. And down it goes.
So when you call some of these people in London, do you know that you've chilled their blood a little bit? Because you're only calling to find out something they don't want you to know.
Well, precisely. And of course, one always knows the answer, the same as you do, and you know if someone's going to lie to you. So yeah, you call them up, and sometimes they hate your guts, and sometimes they love you. I prefer it when they kind of hate you in a way.
Did you, right, did you ever have
Why do
any
you
real
prefer it if
run-ins
they
with
hate
Harold
you?
Pinter?
Because it's much more fun.
Yeah,
To kind of get stories out of people who don't like you.
Yeah, that's when you have to learn how to be a reporter, to get people to tell you things.
You've got to kind of use up a bit of shoe leather and get in there and
Precisely.
do a bit of work.
Did you and Pinter ever sort of come to any kind of a accommodation or understanding? I mean, did he respect what
Yes,
you did?
we did, because he noticed that I liked the theatre. He used to see me at first nights, and he started saying, "What are you doing here? This is the theatre. This is the cathedral of culture."
Oh, God.
That sort of thing. But it was fine afterwards, because he could see me at shows and stuff, and so I cover the whole thing, not just big musicals and.
Yeah, you
plays
cover
international.
everything. Yeah.
So we got on well, and I even covered some of his movies. So.
What did you think of Daniel Craig, one of the world's biggest stars over here? He acquits himself well in this production?
Oh, yeah. But all three of the cast members come from the theatre, don't forget.
Right.
So, people know him as James Bond, but he knows how to, he cut his acting chops at the Royal Court.
Are you talking to Daniel Craig here? Are you interviewing him for the paperback?
No, but Rafe Spall and I know each other pretty well.
Right.
I did find that Daniel Craig's physicality, which is, he's just very pumped up, and his face is certainly quite perfect. And his physicality did not go into me in the same world as Rafe Spall, who's like a kind of ordinary guy actor.
The character that Daniel plays, Robert, is the more masculine character.
Yes,
I've always thought, and he admits to hitting his wife. And so he's quite tough, quite beefy. So I thought he was perfectly cast, personally. And so Jerry, played by Rafe, is the more, what can one say about?
Cerebral.
Thank you. Very good. So I thought they were perfectly matched, personally. And I thought it's the first time I'd realised, and there's a great scene halfway through the play where Robert's getting totally sloshed. He's about to meet Jerry for lunch.
Yes.
And it's an upturned bottle. I've never seen that before. So you know immediately that it's in his cups.
And this play is based on one of these flings that you probably covered. It's based on Harold Pinter's affair with a BBC...
With Joan Bakewell.
A presenter, right?
I was a baby at the time, but...
But they broke up both their marriages, didn't
Yes,
they?
absolutely. But they literally used to meet at this place in Kilburn, and I don't know if it went on for 7 years, as long as it does in the play.
But the setting of the play is where they actually met in real life.
In Kilburn, yeah, absolutely.
Fascinating.
And what's fascinating is how do people carry on these affairs and no one knows?
Well, you found out. You put it in your papers, Baz.
The later ones, yes.
Right. What do you make of? I mean, we have to be honest. We get press seats. We don't have to pay for tickets. But you know,
I pay for tickets when I come here. I don't blag everything from press people, you know. I use press tickets to go to Betrayal, but often, you know, I went out to the paper mill in New Jersey to see, what the hell is the show called?
Oh, Honeymoon in Vegas. Yeah.
And I paid for that.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of, it's easier.
But what do you make, though, of the top ticket price on Broadway for Betrayal is $500.
Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, listen, premium prices are the work of the devil as far as I'm concerned. However, I do understand that, you know, ticket touts, they buy these tickets for nothing. I mean, there were tickets going on the weekend for $2,000 to see Betrayal. Yeah. But the producers don't get that money. So I can understand why people like Scott Rudin think, okay, if they're getting $2,000, I'm getting $500.
What the market will bear.
Absolutely. So I don't like it, but I kind of understand the economics of it.
Right.
I resent it.
So give us a little preview here. Susan and I are both big fans of Stephen Fry, who's in town with Twelfth Night. You've seen this in London, right? Is he as delightful as we hope he is?
Totally.
Malvolio?
Totally. And what's so glorious about seeing it in New York, I was worried that forgive me, you Americans wouldn't be educated enough to get Shakespeare.
Thank you.
But there were...
No, it's Pinter we don't understand.
But the great thing was, watching it, was that the audience were getting all the gags, all the sort of intimate, intricate gags. And sort of, as someone said afterwards, you know, that they really kind of went with the flow. I was sitting right at the back, so I could...
You could feel the waves of laughter.
I could feel it. And there was one woman who was almost answering back.
Oh.
And that's always a good sign.
You know, that is a great sign, because I've got to tell you, over the years, we've seen a lot of Shakespeare, and there's nothing more boring.
Than boring Shakespeare.
Than boring Shakespeare.
Boring bard. Jesus. Yeah. You wanna leave immediately. But listen, this is really good. And Richard III is good as well. I mean, it's not just because the guys dress up as girls, of course, as they did in Elizabethan.
Yeah, this is on all male productions of Richard III.
Yeah. And you know Samuel Barnett, who was in the History Boys?
Oh yeah, he's wonderful.
He's in this, and he looks...
He's Olivia, right?
Yeah, he looks
like a girl.
Well, he looks cool. He looks cool. I mean, not my type, but no. He dresses up well. And there's a very good young actor called Joseph Timms, and he dresses up in Richard III. I mean, it's just glorious.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to that. Before we go, I want to get a little sense of what's going on in London. Tim Rice and Andrew Lloyd Webber, friends of ours who've been on the show a number of times, they both have musicals going up head to head. Tim's got From Here to Eternity.
Yeah, I came to New York while that opened.
Deliberately, so you didn't have to wait?
No, I did see a preview of that.
And can you tell us, is it any good?
Well, my mother told me never to use the word interesting, but it is interesting.
Really? It's not good, but interesting.
There's 3 or 4 good songs in it, but I mean, it's not for me.
Yeah, because Susan and I really...
To use your phrase.
That's why I said Betrayal was not for me.
But Susan and I love Tim, so we're kind of rooting for him.
No, I love Tim, and there's some really nice songs in it, but it's just kind of...
We're not going to see it over here, in other words.
I don't know that it's going to be coming here. Look, they've got to tighten it, and they've got to kind of restage it, redirect it. I mean, there's a good show there, but ain't there yet.
Right.
In my humble view.
And what do you hear about Andrew's new show, Stephen Ward, which is part of the Profumo affair, the famous...
yeah, I mean, I love the whole idea of it.
Yeah.
I love the scandal. I mean, you know...
Christine Keeler.
Yeah, I love all that stuff, all that cool girl stuff.
Did you cover all that stuff?
No, he's not that old.
But you know, when the movie came out with Ian McKellen years ago,
Scandal,
I did take Christine Keeler for tea.
Oh,
and she was fantastic. I mean, it's a shame because my paper and other papers keep showing these horrible pictures of how she looks now. But she turned up and she looked impeccable and she was very eloquent about what went on. And she was really great fun. So I love the whole idea of it. I haven't heard very many of the songs, unlike you.
I've heard 4 or 5, and I got to say they're good.
Are you in his pocket?
No, not at all. In fact, Andrew and I have had a prickly relationship. We're friendly now, but over the years, when he was doing Sunset Boulevard, for example,
Yeah.
I had been leaked actually financial statements from the show,
Right.
which said the show is a total loser, and they were pretending it was the biggest hit of all time. But you may remember, it
Yes.
collapsed everywhere it played. It collapsed, and it almost brought down his empire. Remember, he closed the New York office, the
That's
Australian,
right.
and I wrote a big piece on that called "Pained Weber: The End of Andrew Lloyd Webber's Empire." So he didn't speak to me for a while, but
Well, talking of what was this? There was a name that people, the guys for Wicked Whispers came up with. Love Never Dies. What was it? Paint Never Dries.
paint never dries, right? Which killed Love Never Dies.
I know, but they've come up with another one for Stephen Wall, which is a bit unfair because they haven't seen it.
Oh,
The
what is
West
it?
End
What- oh, you gotta
Wingers,
tell
yes,
us. What
yes.
is it?
I don't want to get sued for this. Andrew, if you're watching this, I'm just passing on information to my colleagues here. Stephen Ward, Leaving Board.
Ooh.
That's all I'm saying. They
The
claim
West End
that.
Wingers who've been on the show, actually.
They claim that.
Stephen Borton leaving.
They claim that. But I mean, I think that they're just getting prepared,
Right.
as it were.
Well, Baz Bamigboye, it's always a pleasure. I never miss your column in the Daily Mail, which you can get online. You've got one of the best websites, by the way, of all the newspapers.
Thank you.
There's any gossip in the world going on, somehow the Daily Mail gets hold of it.
I know. It's all there. It's the place to go.
All right, well, have a good time while you're here in New York, Baz, and thanks for being a guest,
Good
as
to see you.
always, on Theater Talk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pleasure to see you.
Our thanks to the Friends of Theater Talk for their significant contribution to this production. Theater Talk is made possible in part by the Frederick Lowe Foundation, the Eleanor Naylor Dana Charitable Trust, the Corey and Bob Donnelly Charitable Fund, the Noel Coward Foundation, Carrie J. Fries, the Dorothy Strelson Foundation, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, and the New York State Council on the Arts, a state agency.
We welcome your questions or comments for Theater Talk. Thank you and good night.